Welcome, fellow last places, to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, TV shows, and movies. And today is the day for the season finale of Ahsoka. It's came so quick. I can't believe it's already over. Uh, and I just, now we have to wait a long time for who knows when we're going to get our next
Long
dosage of
ass
Star Wars. But we'll get into that in just a second, and Chris and I will tell you guys what we thought about them, but about the episode and the series in general. Before we do that, there will be spoilers ahead in probably all the episodes. But also, if you are listening to this, we assume you've watched everything leading up to this. So, but just for disclaimers, there's going to probably references to the other episodes, and there's definitely going to be some references to Rebels. So if you haven't watched that, I'll be giving some insight on that. But go watch Rebels if you have not. But let's get right into it. Episode 8, last one of the miniseries. Chris, going into this, what were you expecting? And what were some things like in the beginning there that you were like, okay, we're actually hitting our season finale.
What I was expecting, my predictions pretty much were all right.
Yeah.
I knew that. We're gonna go ahead and get right into spoilers and stuff like that. I knew they were gonna get left behind. I knew, um, uh, that Sabine was gonna be in a life-threatening situation where the Force just happens now. So, um, my expectations were. I mean, they met my expectations. They exceeded with the blade of Talzin, and this probably has one of my favorite lightsaber fights ever. So overall, the episode I thought was fantastic. It was a good way to end the season. It does really suck that we can't tie it up more loose. A lot more questions than answers. You know what I mean? So I thought we would get more of what's his I always forget his freaking name, dude.
Balin?
Yeah, I thought we'd get more Balin or like him talking or something, but we caught that moment and that was his last performance. May he rest in peace. Um, but other than that, yeah, overall, good episode. I loved what basically what the team did. We haven't seen this many lightsabers in one area in a live action in quite a while. So it was exciting to see them put in the work. And there was a lot of throwbacks to this one. Definitely had more throwbacks for the Rebels fans. So Bree hasn't watched it yet, so I'm going to be rewatching it with her, and I will definitely be explaining some things to her. But there was a lot of heartfelt moments with lightsabers, Ezra seeing Chopper again. We One prediction that they proved us wrong on was we didn't get Zeb.
I
We
know.
know where he is though. We know where he is, but we didn't get him. And also, they are bridging Clone Wars and everything. I mean, they were already doing that, but more of they opened up the world of the Mortis gods. So that'll be a cool thing to explore. I hope they explore it more. I know the movie that's supposed to be held in the High Republic will probably touch on that more, but this definitely opened the road to that conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so for this episode, I did enjoy it. It definitely wasn't my favorite of the episodes, and I didn't think it would be, especially after episode 5. There was just no
yeah,
way. Because everything else, and I remember saying that, it's really tough to top when you have such a grand moment in a show, and when you do something like they did in episode 5, the like everything after that was really hard to be like, dang, like, you know what I mean? It's just never going to reach that point. And unfortunately, it was middle in the middle of the series. But like this episode for me was pretty good. Going into it, I mean, we expected to get some conclusions, but the ending of this, and we'll get into like some of the parts when we go forward, but like the ending of this let me know that there's going to be a season 2 of this. like because the way that it ended, it really did feel like we're gonna have more to write. Like, there's gonna be
Yeah.
more to this world. And this is one of the things that when you have a connected universe and when you have a connected universe and you're telling your stories on a multiple scale, like we you can't like it's hard to then grade one season of the complete story, right? So because like we had really great moments in this season, right? That but it isn't done and that story isn't complete yet because it's going to be somewhere else. So like grading this series as a whole without getting the actual finishing product and just getting what is kind of not like a hangover, not a cliffhanger, but it's basically like a what's that? Like it's just like
Open ends.
open
It's a
ended.
lot of
Yeah. So
yeah, open
a
ended.
lot of it's going to be open because they're planning on writing the story more because there's no like when Rebels ended, it had a ending. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when Clone Wars was able to get its ending, like it was a clear-cut ending, right? So this shows me here that hey, we're going to have another season. So like it just was it what it is what it is. And that's okay,
Yeah.
you know?
And originally, I mean, we were talking about it that this was only supposed to have one season,
Mhm.
and then we were going to get a movie. But I agree with you. There's just way too many. Unless they make Mando kind of like Boba Fett, where it's like we're going to get 2-3 episodes of Ahsoka. Then, because I think Mando's going to go pick them up. I think that's their
But
way home. Is
y-
Mando.
yeah,
Um,
but it's how he gets there and I don't think he gets there without a
I think
reason.
Grogu calls. Grogu's going to call.
No, no.
The way-
No, he
I don't
wouldn't.
know. I'm just guessing.
I
I'm just
feel like
guessing.
there's going to be a
Flip
reason
it.
for them to go get like to find them, but Ezra's going to
Yeah.
have to be the one who tells them where they are because no one's going to know that. Like it's not going to just stumble upon the galaxy that they're in because they're far. So
Yeah, but going off of what you said, yeah, we were supposed to only get one season, but since it's so open ended, if you made a movie with all these questions, then you're going to be rushing the movie, and it's not going to succeed. And I
yeah,
think a Star Wars movie succeeding is what they like. Your shows are doing good. Um, I mean, last season of Mandalorian was a bit weak. Boba Fett I consider mostly a flop, unfortunately. Andor was great. So the shows have been good, right? But the movies itself lately have been struggling. So this next movie, kind of like whenever we talk about games and stuff, with I'm gonna compare it to with like Xbox and Starfield, like it has to hit for the movie franchise at least.
yeah. The
If
move.
not, I mean, I'm fine with just going with these TV shows
Yeah.
um,
I
for
think
a
the
long
TV
time.
shows you got more time to tell your story. So
Yeah,
again, and like I said, just by the way this ended, it kind of gives that feel that there's going to be a second season or this story's going to pick up somewhere else. Like it doesn't feel like a complete ending, but we'll get into all of that like when we kind of just break down the things in the episode. So one of the cool things that I loved, and Dave Filoni did this on purpose, as he basically named this title of this was the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord,
yeah. I re-
which is a
I love that.
Chronicles of Narnia reference because Dave Filoni has worked with the he paid homage to a couple of his stories, so he it's really cool that he kind of just said, "Oh, like you know what I mean. This is one of those references." I
Yeah,
also loved in the beginning Thrawn referencing the battle basically with the Jedi's when he's like, well, like send that starfire at them. And I love that wide angle that they're using when he's telling his battle plans.
bro. I
Like,
was gonna say the same thing.
mm,
This episode in general, there was a lot of beautiful shots. That shot above the ship when they're guiding the I still don't know the name of that new alien race, but
mm,
like that shot, um, them flying around through the planet, like it was a lot of open shot. It was a lot of movie shots.
yeah,
Mostly, I didn't feel like it was a TV show. I felt like I was in a movie. So,
yeah,
but yeah, Thrawn explaining, and we also I wanted to say first time we're seeing a I don't want to say nervous Thrawn, but I was getting more of a when Kylo Ren is just like fire everything you
Yeah.
got, like, but more controlled because he was
Yeah.
just like, I
No.
need to stop. This problem needs to end right now.
Yes,
We
because
have to take care of this.
the thing is and this is what made that sequence really good. And and again, this is something that I feel pays off more for the people who watch Rebels.
Yeah.
Even so, obviously, when he's having that conversation with Morgan and is like, "Oh, you can't underestimate one Jedi. Like one Jedi was the reason. Like Ezra's whole, um, Ezra doing what he did was the reason why I'm even in this predicament anyway." So he has that taste of defeat from a Jedi, and there because he still feels bad about him underestimating just one Jedi. So he's like, I can't underestimate anyone, which is why he goes to the rain fire. He's just like, yo, I don't care what you got to do, blow them up. Like, you know what I mean? Shoot everything we have because
Yeah.
like I can't get them in here. But also it did show his composure too, which it was like, okay, this happened and he immediately had another plan. Like it wasn't like, oh, and it was a very calm, cool. He was like, okay, well, when they first shot the TIE fighters brought them into like, oh, well, they're going to do a grounded assault. Now I'm going to try to blow them up before they get here. And then once they got in, they were like, oh, get the Morgan, like get the night watch to basically just be like, we're going to get like, we're going to raise these, we're going to
Stormtroopers from the dead.
stormtroopers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was really cool, and the whole thing before that with Morgan, where she basically becomes, you know, she becomes one of
A Night
them.
Sister.
She becomes a
Yeah.
Night Sister, and then she gets to wield the Blade of Talzin, which, if for the Clone Wars fans, you'll know that that was actually a fight with Mother Talzin when she fights Mace Windu. So
Is it Mace Windu or Darth Maul?
Mace Windu, she
He
fights
fought
Mace
Darth
Windu.
Maul too.
hmm
Oh,
She
okay.
fights Mace
Okay.
Windu in Clone Wars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you're right. Okay, yeah. Darth Maul is the only one I
yeah.
remember. But yeah, going off of that plan, like you were saying, he definitely having one plan after another. Going like now that I'm thinking about it, he's definitely pushed them into instead of like, okay, I took out the air resources and everything like that. He definitely pushed them into one lane where it's like, okay, they have to come on foot. They're gonna come straight ahead. Like I know Ahsoka because of Anakin, she's gonna charge forward because as soon as she's like, we'll go to the front, we'll just go straight to the front door. He knew. So each step of the way, you're right. He pushed them into one lane and had it all the way, and all he knew he had to do was just delay them so he can get away.
Yep. And that's what the cool thing was. Because remember, he says that in the last episode where he's like,
Yeah,
we've just forced one of the things that they don't have is time. So he
yeah.
was using the time that whole, you know, throughout the whole thing because he wanted to make sure, hey, you guys are not going to make it by the time I have to leave. So I thought that was really cool. And again, just showing that strategic element from Thrawn. But also, beforehand, before all that, we did see when the ship did get blown up, we did see that Ezra was building a lightsaber. And of course, he
Yes.
did, he built his lightsaber like Kayla.
Kanan.
Built it like Kanan. And then the cool thing is that Huang actually was like, yeah, I helped like 1,000 people do this thing. And like, yeah, I helped him do it too. And then he knew exactly what he was going to look for. And I love the line when he's just like, the relationship between a master and apprentice is just as like, he says something along the lines is like, it's
It's
difficult.
trouble. It's difficult, but it's important
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that,
and then that lightsaber also having the second. I like the little touch of like, I only had two of those.
yeah.
The first one Kanan took, and the second one was just in case he needed it in the future, and I think
Yep.
he would want you to have it. So I thought that was a nice touch to everything.
Yep. So it was really cool to see that. And then they also just given up the straight up, the name drop, which was really cool. And then it was just nice to see that, and I said Caleb because that's how he was originally known. Kanan's name originally was Caleb. Caleb Doom.
Oh,
for those who
Oh
need
yeah,
some
you're
trivia
right, because
things.
those
Yeah.
those are there's comics and stuff of that too.
Yep.
In that moment too, I wanted to point out that we finally find out why Ahsoka stopped training Sabine,
Hmm.
and it wasn't because of their differences. It was because Ahsoka was um, afraid that Sabine was going to use uh, what like her training for revenge
Yep.
because of what happened to Mandalore. And I was like, oh, that makes total sense. I don't know why I didn't think of that at all.
Yeah,
But
and that was actually the next thing I had in my notes, was basically referencing that the purge of
yeah,
Mandalore. So basically saying that, and it kind of gives us also that timeline because um in Mando season 3, we know that they did make it back to Mandalore to find civilization and all that stuff. So like they still know it as what happened, but they don't know what happened in Mando yet. So I think that's pretty cool because eventually they
it'll
will
tie
probably
in.
meet up and
Yeah.
like see all that stuff and see. And it's just they're gonna be at such different times now. Like Sabine's gonna be like at a completely different time, and then they're gonna see Bo Katan again. It's gonna be like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like a pretty crazy thing. So I thought that was really cool that they referenced that. And I do like that they did add the fact that now we know why Ahsoka was scared to push, like to keep pushing her, because she didn't, and especially having Anakin as her master. So she, like, you know what I mean? She knows what that path can lead to. So she kind of try to stay away from them. And but I also love that they did that, showed that relationship of like now Ahsoka was like, yeah, you messed up. Like, she didn't basically blame her. She was just like, I understand, like, because Anakin always stood by me, like no matter what, and she was gonna do the same. So I thought that was really cool.
Also, that moment where she's like, yeah, it was a risky gamble, and she's like, so you know?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, of course she knows. What do you
Yeah.
mean? So you know who you talking to? Um, I wanted to bring up the sound design in the episode
Hmm.
has been a favorite.
Yeah.
Because rolling along with the basically the samurai fight between Morgan and Ahsoka, that sword and the lightsaber clashing together, the sounds and everything. The fight is probably one of my favorite lightsaber fights. It became a top tier fight. I will say, whenever it cuts to Sabine with her lightsaber at some point, she looks pretty stiff. She looked really stiff.
That
So
whole scene looked weird to me. That
it was kind
initial,
of,
like,
yeah,
it wasn't. I actually had that in my notes, but like right before they start fighting, like they were all looking like it all looked weird. Like that
yeah.
initial
She's like,
scene.
oh, blasters, and the way
Yeah.
she was like
Yeah, it
dodging
all
with
looked
Ezra,
like
I
that
was like,
whole
what's
thing looked weird until after that is when I started to like the combat. But like
yeah,
that whole initial section when they take out the first couple night troopers, I was like,
yeah.
this looks really weird. Like, and it looked really awkward. And I was really like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I don't know what's happening. So that one was that was really weird for me. I also liked the reference that the Yoda reference in there. When she was like, if you've kept up with your training, and she goes, I try, and then Ahsoka goes, I do, like instead of
Mhm.
saying I try, because obviously there's no trying. So there's no try. So I thought that was cool. But like I was saying, I was glad we came up to the part where they start fighting those, those night troopers. But when they do the whole thing, I do love that it again goes back to Clone Wars, but it's also in Jedi Fallen Order. So like the basically those night troopers that you fight,
Yeah.
yeah, they're also in Jedi Order. So I thought that was like, I do love that they added the games, but I will tell you at the end something that I wish they would have added to this. That is video game related though, but I thought that whole thing was cool how they did that. And then basically that fight took them upstairs, which I thought the scenes with the camera angles where they were fighting, like closing the doors and stuff, was really cool. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, when they were like, get off me, and then like Ezra just like going ham. It was pretty sweet. Like once,
Also, the horror, like whenever she shoots
yeah,
the face, you can see it like
like,
hanging
yeah.
there and everything. I was like, yes.
Hmm.
I also wanted to say the zombie comms, like whenever you can hear them talking through the
Yeah.
helmet or like groaning through the helmet.
Hmm.
was added that scary element to it also.
Yeah.
I really hope that in the future we see Dathomir in live action, because it's just supposed to be a scary thing. Like you
Yeah.
go and it's supposed to be like, what is going
Well,
on
yeah,
here? Like
and I
it's
think
just
we
dark.
will. There's no way we. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't think we don't. I don't think there's any way we don't see it. Honestly.
Yeah, but I'm glad they took that extra step of I wouldn't expect them to show like the hanging flesh and all that
Yeah.
stuff from, and I enjoyed it a lot. The fact that she was shooting the helmet in that moment too
Yeah.
was really cool to see.
Yep. And then we do see that moment where she finally gets. Of course, this is after the whole scene with that whole scene where they basically are trying to get. They're chasing him down. They're chasing Thrawn down, and
Yeah,
then
they're trying to get to the ship.
Ezra has she gets that big force push after she was able to do the whole zombie scene where we got a little Empire Strikes Back reference, the way that she grabs the thing, a little Luke Skywalker
Yeah,
for you, which was
which
really cool.
I wish in my head that scene, right? Because everybody's expecting it, right? In that scene, what I wish would have happened is like the lightsaber ends in her hand and she thinks she did it, and it cuts to Ezra with his hand up,
Oh no.
like pushing it to. Yeah, I think like, hey, you're still learning. Like I saw it, like we see it twitch a little bit, but he like carries it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Because what happens next is what like kind of turned me off a little bit. The jump,
Which one?
I was
Okay.
like, okay, it's because you survive, right? You got the force, you survived. The fact that she's like, I can do this, and was able to lift him
Yeah.
through to get up there, I was like, okay, this is
Well, but
this
the
is a
thing
lot.
is, no, it is the. But again, it was the perfect combination though of things to unlock it. Even though she wasn't in a stressed environment, you also have to put it like she's going. So now that she's felt the way that it's supposed to flow through her,
Yeah.
she can do it. But also the fact that you also have to put in the fact that she did all this work to find Ezra. The last thing
Yep.
she's gonna want is for him to die, like
Die,
trying to
true.
make that jump. So like I can understand why she would be more like even more focused in that scenario, because like a lot of things has happened to get here and we need to get you on there. So I thought that was like, for me, I didn't have a big deal with it because she was, she was in a intense situation in order to perform that kind of thing. So for me, it didn't bother me that much. I did love how they talked about they brought up that how Thrawn brings up basically the past relationship of knowing like who Anakin was, and when we get towards that, like towards the end there, where he's basically like, just like, yeah, like I knew every step that you were going to take because I knew your master, and like, you know what I mean. And I love the fact that we had, because remember I was talking about the book called Deadly Alliance, where they like literally like they did a mission together. So like Thrawn's, again, this kind of gives that this gives that notion that that happened, but it also gives the notion that I was talking about, that Thrawn also knew Anakin
Also,
becomes Darth
yeah, you're
Vader,
right. Yeah.
because he was just like, wait a second, like I know what you're gonna do, and I also know like what happens if can't control yourself and stuff like that. So I thought the fact that he uses that against her and basically was like, I outmaneuvered you, I outdone this thing, and like today victory is mine, like, and
Yeah,
you
he's like, I
lose,
won.
like, you know what I mean. So it gave that very that Infinity War vibe. Basically, it's like, no, I got you. Like we got one up on you. And even though I felt like I said this episode wasn't it I don't think a lot of people will be happy with the way that the episode went, just because it didn't have that same feeling that episode 5 did. But what I will say about this episode is that it gave all of those characters more depth, right? Like you Thrawn winning in a strategic, tactical way by using his information that he knows, is the way that this villain works, right? It works for this particular thing because he's not going to, even though Thrawn is really good at hand to hand combat, um, it's not what he's known for. So him getting this one up, even though he doesn't know that Ezra has also made it back home, is an interesting one. So that, to me, that was really cool. And also just Ezra, speaking about Ezra, when he meets Hera and is disguised as a star, like as a stormtrooper,
Stormtrooper.
which
Yeah,
is
it's a
something
classic
that
thing.
happens
It's
in
like,
Rebels, is
yeah,
really cool. But Chopper knowing immediately was really cool. The fact that he's just like, Chopper knew, he was like, wait a second, like I think I know what's going on here. And then you know Ezra saying I made it home to Hera, and like was really cool. Like that was a nice moment. Of course it's a bittersweet one because he's back. That also means Thrawn made it back. Like Thrawn did make it back. Also, I love that they added that the jumper to his ship. Like it's
yeah,
on the whole thing. Like it's on
yeah.
the whole the on Chimera. It's on the whole thing. Like so it's just a part of the ship. So he can do that whenever he wants, as long as he has the power for it. I thought when they showed that shot that was like really cool to see it to see that added to his ship.
And the another favorite shot was the planet lighting up with
Yeah.
the like as it came up. I wanted to go back to before Ezra jumps on the ship and everything, or after Ezra jumps up on the ship.
Mhm.
I did like the continuous fighting between Ahsoka and Morgan as
Yeah.
they get up to the top and they're fired like she's getting shot at. When they get into the circle and all the stormtroopers just surround
Yeah.
and just watch the fight happen, and it's just like a huge thing. That fight, Morgan's death basically was clean.
So clean.
The lightsaber breaking, and then she ends up taking the sword and cutting her with the lightsaber and the sword, and so
Yeah.
you see the lightsaber mark and the green mark. I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, and
I
but
really,
it was really cool, and of course it's cool because like since Ahsoka doesn't have her second lightsaber,
yeah,
it kind of warrants, oh, I've got both my weapons kind of thing.
yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I wonder what she did with it. Is my question. What she does with
I think
this?
it just,
I
I
think it
thought it
disappears
disappeared.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it was cool for her to do that, and just Ahsoka just showing off, she's been in so many fights. Like it's also like Morgan, you haven't the thing that I did find weird is like I know, okay, we like you become, a Night Sister, all this stuff. I don't think you just become a sword wielder though. Like, you know what I mean? Like for people to just be out here just picking up their weapon for the first time. We haven't seen her with a weapon the whole time. But
yeah.
you know what? When you are panicked, I'll give you that because they did allude that that kind of stuff could happen because we did see it with Shin and what's
I
her
don't know.
name?
She was
With
putting
Sabine.
in
Yeah, she was
work
putting in
on
work though. She might have.
Ahsoka.
I think she knew. She had to know. But I'm just saying we didn't see it, or we didn't get any evidence that that was the case. So
Yeah.
I do like when they kind of show things that hey, this person knows how to use it. It's not some miracle that they just picked it up. But the fight was still great, and the death was great. And then yeah, we see we see all those that information and all those things that happened with Thrawn and all that. I did love the fact that after the fact, Thrawn makes his escape. Ezra's back on, in the galaxy. They wanted to be back in it. Ahsoka, and I love that Ahsoka and Sabine didn't really be like, it wasn't like at odds kind of thing. It was just kind of like, all right, well, I love that scene where she's basically like, we're Ezra's back home like because of you, and we're exactly where we're supposed to be also. Like you know what I mean. So maybe the whole time, obviously, it was set up for to make sure Ezra and Thrawn are always together so that Ezra could always beat Thrawn. Um, Also, I love that Thrawn is saying that this is for the Empire because it goes back
Yeah.
to basically the Hair of the Empire story where it's like he wants the Empire back like because that's what he knows, and it's just really cool to see that like he's like, oh, I'm bringing this back, like you know what I mean. And it's going to be interesting because now that they are in the same galaxy as us, I need to know what basically happens before the new order or like becomes a thing. Like what kind of interactions, because I think we can do some really good things and like have some really good connections before we get to the sequel movies. So I think that'd be really cool, but we'll see. And then once we see them on Earth, back on when they're trapped on Perdea, we see another Clone Wars reference where Sabine sees Mora for the first time, the spiritual bird. So she also saw that in Clone Wars in I think it was like season 3, but it was also like you were talking about earlier with the Mortis gods. So like that kind of thing, like they connect with each other. If you guys watch Clone Wars, again, go watch all that stuff. It's totally worth it, especially with the amount of references that this show had for this. Like it's literally like they are 100% saying we're tying this all in. All of this stuff matters. So like go, I think everyone should um go watch it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then we saw Balin. We kind of get to that end montage where everyone's kind of like we're seeing where everyone's at, kind of thing. We see Balin. He finds the statues of the Mortis gods, so he's trying
Well,
to
one
see.
specifically is that episode. I think it's Clone Wars. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
for sure
Clone
Clone
Wars.
Wars. No, they show up in Rebels too. Where it's the father,
Yeah, father and
it's
son.
the father, daughter, and then the son.
Yep.
And if you can't, I would highly recommend seeing that episode because it's all about the dark side and everything like that, the balance of the Force and everything, and how the dad is the balance between the daughter and the son. And it's really cool. It was a really cool story
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people stuck with. So when they saw that statue, I assume a lot of people when they see the statue, they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, it's it's
Yeah,
the
it's that
guy."
statue, but also if you notice, the daughter's statue is not there.
Yeah,
Like it's just the father and the son
it's
statue.
the son.
So,
Yeah,
there's been some early rumors about that. It's basically saying, this is kind of like Ahsoka's role to be the daughter in this scenario because she's still there and because he found it there. We'll see if that plays any factors, but I did think that was cool. And then we did see Shin kind of light her lightsaber up to the the remaining troopers that were there, or that well, not troopers, I'm sorry, that tribe.
the Raiders,
Yeah, the raiders
Raiders or
that were
whatever.
there.
Yeah,
So maybe she's going to start her own little thing. So again,
which was kind of funny because some of them had that look like, "Who is this?"
yeah,
Like
but I think
some of them were packing up.
they
Like,
saw the
"What's going on?"
lightsaber and was just
Yeah, they
like,
see
okay.
it.
But
Yeah,
this ending basically is why what I talked about earlier gives me every notion that we're gonna get a season 2, just because like when you end say like things where you're just kind of telling everyone where they've ended, you're kind of giving off the vibe that hey, we're gonna get a season 2 of this show. You know what I mean? So I felt that uh, those scenes where we're just kind of jumping to everyone gives us all the notion that we're gonna get a season 2.
yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, and then we see some some Ahsoka, I mean some more homage paying, like homages played, where we see the whole where we see the lost galaxy essentially, and you see all the stuff like
Yeah,
the things basically showing that uh basically giving us that Raiders of the Lost Ark, because we know that Dave Filoni is a huge George Lucas fan. He loves George Lucas, and he just wants to show off a little bit of his work in some of his movies and shows. So I thought that was cool. And yeah, it was. And then pretty much we do end with, we did have Sabine noticing something that she didn't say to Ahsoka immediately, when she's like, "Oh, like it was nothing." Like she was like, "Is that?" And then she was like, "Oh no, it's nothing," kind of thing. And then she kind of walks off. And then at the end, we do see Ahsoka starting to look into the distance, and then we finally see that Anakin has his Force Ghost, which is kind of it is an homage to, I guess, the remastered versions that put him in episode at the end of episode 6, which is Hayden Christensen, which a lot of people hated, but now a lot of people love it because in
yeah.
this
This one was
episode
like more.
it was more like, okay, like this works,
Yeah,
because
this is
and
good.
it was like a lot cooler, and like it
Yeah,
was just like, and I love that Dave Filoni did that, because it is very much like, oh yeah, like he deserves again this redemption. And I feel like this series, and not that the other ones, I think this series, the ones that he was in, because if you think about it, he was in Obi-Wan, and then now Ahsoka, and then like the stuff in Clone Wars. So like it kind of gives him that redemption. Like he had like a mini three. He was in three of the TV shows, and this was probably his last like thing of being in this show. So he gets his Force Ghost at the end. I thought that was like um, a cool thing to see.
Yeah. Oh, I also wanted to say, I don't know why it stuck out with me, but like, I thought it was cool that Thrawn called, whenever he's talking to Ahsoka before he leaves, and how he's like, you're a great Ronin. I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, I kind of like the time, like, continuing on with the whole series of like, being a knight, and then also, having the samurai stances and calling back to those fighting styles, has been, uh, really cool to bring into the space. Even though we already knew that's what it was already based on, but this show definitely harped on it more.
yeah, and the Anakin showing up on thing could also play into like we were talking about with the statues. Basically, he was the chosen one who was able to keep the daughter and the son, basically Leia and Luke. So like him showing up during that and all that being found and stuff like that is going to be really cool because like he was the father in that situation. So like
Yeah,
it's really cool like how we're kind of going into this whole like basically that like religion of Star Wars, but basically how that spiritual aspect of Star Wars is really playing. Like Dave Filoni does a really good job at integrating it with all of with everything. So I thought that was really cool, and the way that the episode ended was basically like okay, like. But again, it definitely gives that season two like we're gonna get a season two vibe. I just don't know when, which is the thing that sucks. And then my one thing that I hope I wanted more than anything, I feel like this would have been one of the best times to bring Star Killer into this series. And
oh man.
I can't think of a better show or better reason to do it because that's technically if we do make it canon, he would have been Darth Vader's apprentice. And I don't think there's no better way of showing that I guess subtle fight like, between Darth Vader and Anakin by showing Anakin's apprentice and Darth Vader's apprentice. Like it's right there, and I find it hard to believe that Dave Filoni hasn't thought of it. So I don't know if season two, because again, it doesn't matter about the timeline. We could still make it happen because if we need to push that Force Unleash happened at like between now and Mando, which essentially Mando happens after like is happening, along that all that stuff. So like I'm wondering if we can if we can make that time work, and I think it would be such a good way to bring him back into the Star Wars lore and make it canon and be like apprentice versus apprentice. Like I think that'd
Yeah,
be so dope. And
that would have been cool.
that's who I wanted the Inquisitor to be. I was like, yo, if it's
Yeah.
Star Killer, that'd be
Yeah.
fire. Like so hopefully if you're listening, Disney, and I see it, just know that I know that was my idea, okay? And you guys took it without,
I'll take my million.
I'll take my million, please and thank you. But I thought that would be a really cool thing. But overall, like I said, I love the series. I think episode 5 was by far and like probably one of the best Star Wars just period that we've seen. I don't think that it's definitely top 5. Like that episode 5 was everything I wanted. So like what I mean? Every episode after that, it's not that they weren't good, it's really hard to top such a good episode. And the crazy thing is Andor did the same thing. Andor had a really good episode 5 too, but they had a really good, like they closed out really well, but episode 5 was really strong in that series too. So
That whole show, Andor, I still cannot believe exists. Like it's like
Andor is so good. It's like
it's
Rogue One. It's like a lot of
yeah,
people like you watch Andor and you're like, damn, I can't believe that show was as good as it was.
yeah.
And it's
That
the
whole
same.
prison area is just
Yeah.
like you want to talk about like I was upset like every episode that we had to start that we
Yeah.
were in there. I was like, oh, this
Yep.
is Heartbreaking.
Yeah, and everything. It's the same thing with Rogue One, where Rogue One's just that
Yeah.
movie that comes out of like it came out of nowhere. Like Rogue One's my second favorite Star Wars movie, like period. Like right after Empire Strikes Back, it's Rogue One because Rogue
Yeah.
One does such a good job at a lot of the things about Star Wars without having lightsabers. Like besides the moment where you needed a lightsaber and you got one of the coolest moments ever with Darth Vader. So um you can't, it was basically like we're going to give you all this new stuff, but don't forget that this is Star Wars and here is your old thing, and it works to perfection to me. So um yeah, so check out Andor, and we also did a review on Andor, so if you guys want to go back and listen to that, you guys can go ahead and do that. And then the other thing I guess I wish we would have gotten was that the reunion, but I can tell we're obviously going to get a Zeb, Hera, and Ezra reunion. Like there's just no way we
I just
don't.
assume that this go around they spent a lot of money on the fights.
Yeah.
Chimera looked great. Like I think Zeb is kind of expensive to like.
Yeah, and I think but like it makes sense where the story is going, right? Like,
Yeah.
because even when we were watching this, like we knew Zeb just couldn't just end up on the planet, like you know what I mean, like, and he didn't know who was coming back. So I'm okay with them saying his name and like being like, oh well, this is what he's doing. But now it also makes sense that why they're going to now go out and look for him. Ezra now knows where he's at because
Mhm.
he found out. So I'm pretty sure Hera's going to be like, well, we got to go get Zeb or something like that, to go get so we can find them. But of course, they're going to have to deal with Thrawn too. So again, we know that this is not the end of this story, just because all these characters are still in very much open areas, and that might turn some people off. And I get it because you're like, well, this was advertised as a mini series, and you kind of want an ending. But like, I'm okay with this as long as we get the continuation and it be like a direct continuation, not some like, there's like a bunch of stuff down the road, and I really don't want it to be like the like Boba Fett where, you're putting in book of like
Episodes of it. Yeah.
episodes of Mando
Keep
in
it
there, which
separate.
I still to this day don't think that was planned. I just, and again, if you guys want to listen to how I feel about Book of Boba, we do have the review of that. But I really do feel like they were just like, yo, this ain't doing good. We got to put these first 3 episodes of Mando in this so that people can start watching it. Because I'm
No, man,
telling
we'll
you,
just put more scooters on the
season
wall.
three, season three of Mando would have been perfect with those 2 episodes added to the front of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It would have been perfect because we would have got a perfect story there for Mando. So I think they didn't want to do Book of Boba. Then what's our boy's name? John Favreau was like, well, we'll add these to this so you guys can we'll add the first 2 episodes of season 3 because that whole thing was about them, like, which is wild, like all of it. So before we sign off of this, Chris, favorite moment in the episode and the series while we're at it, since this is the last one of
Oh
the
man.
season, we're saying, because again, I think season 2
Yeah.
comes out.
Favorite moment of the episode is that, like I said, the sword fight between Morgan and Ahsoka. That whole fight sequence was just clean, in my opinion. Favorite moment of the series is episode 5. Is the
Yeah, the
yeah,
best, yeah. Episode 5
episode
is
5
by far the best. Like I
in
said,
general.
my favorite moment, obviously for me personally and completely biased, was seeing Thrawn live action for the first time. So, duh, that was going to be my answer. Anytime I see Thrawn, it's a good what you call it. So, I think,
What do you give the series? What do you
huh?
give the series as a whole? Like out of I don't know what scale you want to do, 1 through 5 or 1 through 10?
I mean, just because how good episode 5 itself would be 5 stars. Just, you know what I mean? Like, just 5 stars. So, like, I guess you have to, like, I have to I have to give it like 5 stars, and probably like, because I think it could have finished a little bit stronger.
Mhm.
Because again, it does feel like we're going to get more, which is great, but it still affects your season, right? Like as far as the thing goes. So I want to say 4.5, just because like I think it could have ended stronger. I think it could have
Yeah.
ended with a little bit more. It could add a little bit more flair to it. also, again, I knew it was going to be hard just because episode 5 was so good. And it's hard to kind of cap your like one of those moments again. So I think and especially now knowing that I think a season 2 is going to come out, that's why it ended this way. I'd give it a 4.5 for the season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, for me, obviously Thrawn being was my favorite, and just I mean, again, the whole series. See, being such a big fan of Rebels, definitely this show was for us. Also, it was
Yeah.
for the people who watched Rebels and Clone Wars because there was just so many references that people wouldn't know if you didn't watch it. So, I thoroughly did enjoy that. But that is going to wrap it up for us for Ahsoka season 1. We're hoping there's a season 2, but we'll call this the season 1 finale. Again, it was everything. It was a lot of the things I wanted, so I can't fault that. We're also we're gonna have another video for you guys because Loki starts tomorrow, right? Yep, Loki starts tomorrow. So
Well, as this comes out, because this comes out on the day of Loki.
yeah. So this will come out on the day of Loki, and then we'll have Loki's at some point. Once we
Happy
figure
Loki
out the
Day.
time. Yeah. So we'll figure out when that is, and we'll be bringing that out for you guys. So we're going back to the Marvel Universe. It's been a while anyway. So from Star Wars to Marvel, this is what Disney should have been doing, and this is honestly what the schedule should be. We should not be going any time without Marvel or Star Wars. Like really, seriously, we seriously should not. And we can be making great stories out of this. We should get a Marvel show, Star Wars show, Marvel show, Star Wars show, movie, Star Wars movie. Like, what are we doing? Do you guys need me in the room? You can hire me.
We also kind of get to Marvel. Well, I'm not gonna count it as a second one, but for people that don't know, Werewolf by Night is getting re-released in color.
Yes, which I'm not excited about. I'm just excited
But
that
some people it'll bring more people in. Some
I'm
people are like, I
just
can't do my
excited
black
that
and white stuff.
Werewolf by Night is coming back. And if you want to listen to my review on that, I did do one. That was one of my favorite things from that phase of Marvel. It is so good. And watch the black and white one. I mean, I'm going to watch the color one and I'll probably do a review because I'll do the comparison thing. But listen, that Werewolf by Night was just fantastic. The fighting choreo is some of the best in Marvel. The fighting choreo on that show is amazing. So definitely go check that out because it's worth it. All right. So thank you guys as always. Like, share, comment, do all that stuff. Let us know what you guys thought of this episode and Ahsoka as a series. We'd love to see your guys' comments on the YouTube. If you guys don't mind, you can catch us on Spotify and all those other good places you can get our podcast. So check us out, turn on those notifications, hit the follow button so you guys can keep up with us. So until next time, Fire Team out.
Hail the Empire.
Okay.